All the stories in the Bible have to do with God's efforts to save the human race and us as individuals.
Yes.
So that's kind of a shorthand. You can always plug that in. It's got to have something to do with God working to save the human race.
And hold on to that, because you're going to see in the literal sense of this story, very much like it seems like God is not trying to save anyone.
Oh, it
that
seems
actually
the opposite. Someone's
having to talk him back from just nuking everybody, right?
Right, yeah. So, right, fire and brimstone coming down, and the whole valley is toast, all the cities and everything. It looks like absolute the epitome of divine judgment, condemnation, and yet Swedenborg saying, no, it's actually about God saving us.
It's actually this whole story, the story of Sodom and Gomorrah, is about Jesus' efforts to save humanity from the consequences of self-centeredness.
Self-centeredness?
Both historically and right now, yes.
But I thought that was a good thing.
And we will give you the most thorough explanation in history of what Swedenborg defines as self-love or self-centeredness. So, first of all, it's important to establish that this is something for everyone. The Sodom and Gomorrah correspond to something that applies to all of us. And actually, why is this story so intense? Because Sodom and Gomorrah corresponds to the darkest potential in the human heart. If you don't believe me, check out Secrets of Heaven 2220. In an inner sense, Sodom means nothing but the evil that comes of self-love. And like you could say, there's a whole movement out there that's saying, take care of yourself. Love yourself. That's the most important step. Hang on to that, because you're going to see what Swedenborg actually means by that and how it differs from what you may mean by it yourself.
You're going to see a real definition of that. Yeah.
And look, why is there two things? Why is Sodom and Gomorrah, if it's just all symbolic? Why isn't it just one thing? Sodom symbolizes everything bad in general that comes from self-love, while Gomorrah symbolizes everything false that does.
So Sodom's like the heart and Gomorrah is like the mind,
And the
bad thinking as opposed to, evil action.
So if we're saying this self-love, which is something that is really self-centeredness, is so toxic that it's this great evil in the human heart, the falsity that comes out of that are the justifications that we need to give ourselves to lead a life of extreme selfishness.
Right. You got to be telling yourself a story or something. Yeah, right.
Today on Extreme Selfishness. First we're going to look at the chapter before the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah. So we begin, there's Abraham and there's these three angels. Jonathan, what goes on here in this chapter?
Well, these three angels come to visit, and Abram had been talking to them, and they were speaking on behalf of Jehovah. In fact, it's even kind of confusing in the text whether it's really God himself or these angels or who's talking. And in this scene, they're all looking out over the plain. You see, Sodom was down, Gomorrah, these were cities, and also Admah and Zeboim, I think, were in this plain. And they're all looking toward Sodom. And Abraham realizes in the course of the conversation that Sodom is doomed. It's in big trouble.
Yeah.
And he starts this bargaining process with Jehovah, which is kind of weird.
But for a lot of reasons. But let's read it first.
Let's look at Genesis 18.
React.
And the men rose up from there and looked out. So these were the men and the angels kind of thing. And looked out toward the face of Sodom. And Abraham was going with them to send them off. And Jehovah said, shall I be hiding from Abraham what I'm doing? And Abraham will unquestionably become a large and numerous nation, and all the nations of the earth will be blessed in him. And Jehovah said that the outcry of Sodom and Gomorrah had become great, and that their sin had become very heavy. Let me go down, please, and I will see whether they've made an end of it according to its outcry which has come to me. And if not, I will know it. So it's written this weird way as if God doesn't really know what's going down, but he has to check it out.
We've already there's got to be something more than is on the surface, because clearly the traditions that are believing in this God believe that God is omniscient.
That's right.
So what's going on here already?
How does he not know? Let me see if there's anything to this or not, as if he's a manager in the back room or something.
Yeah.
And the men looked out from there and went toward Sodom. And Abraham was still standing before Jehovah. And I like that kind of detail. Like he's still standing with God, and they're kind of looking over there to see what's going on in Sodom. And Abraham came near and said, will you also destroy the just with the ungodly. This is key. The just meaning righteous people, good people. Perhaps there are 50 just people in the middle of the city, like it was kind of a given that the city was bad. But what if you have some good people there? Will you still destroy it and not spare the place for the sake of the 50 just people who are in the middle of it? Far be it from you, says Abraham to God. He's kind of a little nervy, I think, but far be it from you to do according to this thing, to put the just to death with the ungodly, and that it should be the same for the just as for the ungodly. That seems unfair, right?
Who does Abraham think he is, first of all, to say, hey, God, listen, don't forget what position you're in. But second of all, what's wrong with God that he's got to have somebody remind him of this basic, almost like pseudo-morality, because it's still all vengeance. Something is amiss here.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right. What is going on? Far be it from you. Won't the judge of the whole earth perform judgment? And Jehovah said, seemingly in response to Abraham's plea,
you make a good point.
If I find in Sodom 50 just people in the middle of the city, I will spare the whole place for their sake. So if you have just 50 good people, okay, no destruction. And then, if some of you may be familiar with this Bible story, Abraham continues, and he's sort of polite about it. I don't want you to get angry.
Yeah.
Can I bring up another point? What about 45?
Yeah.
What about that?
Mm-hmm.
And then he says, how about if there are 40? And each time Jehovah says, no, I won't destroy it. And then he goes to 30. And then he goes to 20. And at the end of the chapter, we read this. And Abraham said, please here he is doing his polite thing. Let anger not blaze in my Lord. And let me speak just this once. He's actually spoken plenty, but just like I can make one. It's like Columbo.
Yeah.
I make one more point.
Yeah.
Just one more thing. Maybe 10. Okay, he's bargained all the way down to 10. Maybe 10 will be found there. And he said, meaning God, for the sake of 10, I will not ruin it. And Jehovah went when he had finished speaking to Abraham, and Abraham returned to his place. So there's this bargaining down from 50 all the way to 10 by 10s or 5s.
Yeah.
What a weird thing.
If sometimes you hear about a company or a startup or something, and there's like a CEO that's out of it, but people know it's really the so-and-so that's really the brains behind this, and they're kind of keeping the CEO's ego in check and doing it, right? Who's who there? I mean, God is just this hair trigger, barely able to make basic calculations, and Abraham has to just talk him down slowly to say, well, don't get mad, but who's obviously smarter and who's more loving between the two there?
Right. It seems like Jehovah is like, I'm going to do it, and then Abraham's sort of pulling him back from the edge.
Which one of those should actually be God? You know? So, but also this whole back and forth of that we need to get your input in there. It's just this almost like the kind of back and forth you would have with yourself if you were weighing a difficult decision.
True. I've been known from time to time to speak to myself. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Swedenborg says that's actually closer to what this story is really about. That all the stories in the Word are about Jesus, who is God trying to free the human race, right? And Jesus in particular being God's connection to humanity through the divine human, right?
Yes, that's right.
So this is actually the whole Jesus trick as it was done, we've done a lot of shows on why that was important and why it's there.
That's true.
It's a central part of Swedenborg's theology. What was happening there was God was having to do this very difficult maneuver to rearrange the human race, and he walked the exact path that we can walk. So actually did grow as a person and have periods of being more aware of and connected to his divine identity and less aware and connected. And this is actually the story of when Jesus, played by Abraham, this part of the divine human consciousness started to understand just what the state of the human race was.
Where we were with the human race.
How big the task ahead was. So this is
which I think